Hello and welcome to Mississippi Insight. I'm Byron Brown. Thank you for joining us. This week, the state legislature has wrapped up the 2022 session with a record-breaking operating budget, $1.5 billion in ARPA spending, and the largest tax cut in state history. A busy session, yes, but what did lawmakers miss this year? Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann presides over the state Senate. He talks with 12 News about his chamber's work, differences with House leadership, priorities for the next session, and his thoughts on revitalizing the capital city. We're one-on-one with Delbert Hosemann this Sunday on Mississippi Insight. Republican Delbert Hosemann is Mississippi's 33rd and current lieutenant governor and the president of the state Senate. He came to our studio here in Jackson Thursday and talked with my colleague Melanie Christopher, and they had plenty of policy and legislation to cover, but still they make time for a little jab at yours truly.
Welcome back to Mississippi Insight.
Thank you.
Filling in here for Byron Brown. So
it's an improvement.
Well,
don't tell him I said
I hope he's watching. Okay. We have the 2022 legislative session, of course, in our rear view mirror now. In your view, how productive were lawmakers this year in terms of policy?
Well, without question, this is a historic year. We tackled more difficult issues, from medical marijuana to teacher pay, from equal pay to transportation bills to ARPA money, which is $1.4 billion, to just outdoor stewardship fund, eminent domain, medical marijuana. You go down a whole list of things. We covered just about the whole waterfront. In fact, we were doing an after session review the other day, and other than our constitutional amendment, which I favored having a constitutional amendment available to citizens, other than that, I think we got everything.
No surprise that the session was dominated by Republican initiatives, of course. The tax cut bill, a case in point, but there was a lot of tough negotiation on this measure. Are you satisfied with the final version of tax reform?
Well, I think I am. As you know, I was opposed to doing the full elimination right away. I think the governor wanted to do $600 million a year, and then we had about 5 or 6 different proposals. But I've been around long enough to know that every time we've had any kind of income like we've had this year, whenever we've had that, we've had a recession or a downturn. There's never since the Romans have we ever not had this up and down. We'll have another one. So I was very concerned that we lock ourselves in where we couldn't give our teachers the money that they needed, or we couldn't do our roads and bridges and the other things we need to do in Mississippi. I was very concerned that we were going to get to a point where we couldn't do that. This bill is aggressive. In our last 4th year, it's over $500 million reduction in taxes. Taxpayers need that money, and that's fine. And I think we have looked at this in an organized fashion versus something out 10 or 20 years from now that we weren't really sure would work or not. So I think the tax bill is good. I still want to come back. I have some concerns about the grocery tax. We tried to propose that in the Senate side. Inflation has gone to 6 or 7%. That's hitting everybody really hard. So yeah, I have some things that we would like to look at again that involve taxes around the grocery tax probably.
All right. So how confident are you now that the state can afford the losses in the operating revenue that we have in the long run?
Well, clearly this year we're going to have $1 billion excess. And our tax cut probably is about $180 million or so. So we've got enough room in here for some hiccups or whatever. Clearly that generated the ability for us to make the tax cuts. I think we're really good for the next year or two. Where I really look out is in year 3, 4, and 5, where our state will be, and I can't imagine that we will have the same largesse that we've had now. We've never had $1 billion surplus ever, and now to have one like this, and then the federal government throw all of its money on top of it, that won't last. Our sales tax will decrease when people stop buying, when we have the other downslope of this. Housing is in a bubble right now in Mississippi. Inflation is rampant. And we had that first indication that I was worried about, where the short-term T-bills are higher than the long-term T-bills, which have since 1955 projected a recession. And so we're on the edge of that. How Feds do the monetary will be important, but there's no way that we'll continue to have this kind of surplus.
The income tax elimination proposal didn't find much favor in the Senate this year. Do you expect Speaker Gunn and the House to push further toward elimination next year?
I do not. I think that we looked at this on a 4-year basis. Everybody agreed to it for a 4-year basis. Clearly, if we continue out in year 2 and 3 to have this kind of excess, then we ought to be looking at tax reduction. I'd like to see the grocery tax reduced. Maybe there's more room to reduce the income tax, but I don't want to do that too far out when I'm not really sure what we're going to be looking like. So I know we're going to have our commitment to our teachers, our education, our infrastructure, those kinds of things, our parks, our public spaces. Those commitments are there. So if there's additional funds, we can revisit everything. But I would be surprised if we move anything next year until we see how this is going to run.
Talking about the American Rescue Funds, okay, lawmakers approved allocations of $1.5 billion in those that funding. When can local governments expect to get that money?
This is a great question, because you're not going to believe this, but I've already had a call. Now, we passed this a week ago Tuesday.
I'm surprised we haven't had a call.
I know. Where's my money? I said, we just passed it Tuesday. The governor hadn't even signed this yet. Y'all just give us a little bit of break. But it's effective July the 1st.
Okay.
And we'll be meeting, a lot of this is spread around. The Department of Environmental Quality has the water and sewer, the $750 million we outlined to cities to fix their stuff. So I expect them to do their regulatory process over the next 30 to 60 days and start applications in July.
So what should the average Mississippians expect to see in terms of impact?
I think they'll see a lot. We're going to devote, we started out by agreeing to match whatever money they got from ARP. So the cities and the counties got about $900 million. So I don't think they'll spend all of that on water and sewer, but I'm anticipating, and we've appropriated $450 million to do those matches. So you're going to see almost a doubling of funds available to towns across Mississippi. I think you'll start seeing that happen into this year, all through next year. We also appropriated another $240 million for roads and bridges, and another $100 million for county roads and bridges. So what you're going to see is a lot of asphalt and rehab, and we've got 2 or 3 new roads you'll be seeing done. So I anticipate this next year is going to be a construction year where you see roads and bridges being built, you'll see water and sewer systems being built. The thing that will probably hold us back more than anything is our capacity to do it. We don't have enough people and enough construction companies to actually do all the work that we'll be given.
Well, I'll tell you, bad roads and no water is something that makes our phones ring. So it has to make yours too.
It does, and all I can tell you is we've allocated the money in July 1st to get started. We'll have capacity problems. We can't even get enough stuff, and we also have, to employ this many people. We're basically at full employment in Mississippi right now. So we'll have some struggles, but it won't be because the money's not there. It'll be just the fact that we got to get it done.
Getting enough people into those jobs.
Coming up, the Lieutenant Governor talks about teacher pay raises and what legislators did not get done this year when Mississippi Insight continues.
Let's talk about education. One big task that lawmakers took care of this year, and that's a teacher pay raise. As the mother of a teacher, I'll talk about the importance of that. I already know.
Oh, when our first year I came out, I wanted a teacher pay raise. I didn't get it. So the second year we got a raise of $1,000, which was nice. That was a good start. And then this year we got another $250 million. So we have spent over $250 million on teacher pay raise in Mississippi. That was to build them up to where we're more than competitive with the surrounding areas, so that a teacher didn't have to make a decision on where to teach based on the economics of it. Now, but that's just kind of the start here. There are other things. We devoted a lot of money to training, technical training when you're getting out of school and high school if you don't want to go to college. We're devoting a loan program to go ahead and build our schools back up with leaky roofs and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of other money in the education stream that we're doing. I don't think clearly in the history of Mississippi has any legislature ever devoted this much money to education. Not only teachers' salaries, which was desperately needed, but Senator DeBar just did an awesome job. And also
on his talking tour, yes.
He went everywhere, and all the teachers spoke to him, and that bill is written by teachers for teachers, and we're really excited to have it passed.
They have mentioned the school operating budgets taking a hit. Now, I think Chairman DeBar said that the Mississippi Adequate Education Program will be shorted by about a little over $300 million. in the new state budget. Are you worried that now with inflation going the way it is, it's going to make it more difficult for these local districts to provide for the students and the teachers? The teachers already, so much comes out of their pocket.
It does, and what we did with the teacher pay raise, you know, the MAEP formula has a lot of different things in it, but I'd say probably 30 to half of the money that's spent in a public education is in teachers. So we went and took care of that part of the budget that all these school systems have. Then we went over and gave them a building fund, and the feds gave them something called ESSER to spend other money on. So there's probably more money in the system right now than they can really assimilate to. I do want to look back next year at the MAEP formula. I looked at it. There's some things that may need to be tweaked one way or another, but I think our goal would be to get more and closer to fully funding that. But I think you have to give the legislature some credit for putting $250 million in salaries, because that's a big part of the budget that's reflected in MAP. We're not done yet, but we did make some strides. And it's not just all public education. It's not just that K to 12. It also, which we want to do pre-K, but it's not only that, it's that technical expertise
which
that they
is
can
so
get.
important.
Yes, ma'am. They can. I saw an ad the other day to drive a truck for Walmart was $110,000 starting salary. Our welding salaries, all the things that
plumbers,
all
electricians,
all of those
that,
are
yes,
right through the roof.
Good.
So it's good.
One measure that seemed to divide the House and Senate leadership was that move to extend Medicaid coverage for postpartum for those up to 12 months. Now, Speaker Gunn blocked the Senate legislation to that effect from reaching the House floor. Disappointing to you?
Yes. I asked somebody the other day on one of these questions, I said, what do you remember about being 1 year old? Well, I said, I don't remember anything. I said, you know why? Your mother took care of you. Now, these people are already on Medicaid. 60% of our births are on Medicaid. They're already on Medicaid, and so we want them to be healthy to take care of their children. And I can't, for some reason, really get how we are to argue in the Supreme Court so heavily to make sure that our preborn, that a right to life exists, but yet when we got our children here, we say, well, that's nice, you get 2 months. You know, so it doesn't seem to make sense to me. And the expense is not much. When I talk to Medicaid, it's about $6 million. Well, we just did $1 billion worth of tax relief. Surely we can find $6 million to keep moms healthy and children healthy. And you and I both know, you're a mother, I'll never be, but you know that the children in their first formative years, taking care of them is so critical. So we're hopeful. Not to say anything about keeping them out of the NICU, which is really expensive. So I really think that we need to come back and address that, and don't get caught up in this as some expansion of, it's not an expansion of Medicaid. It's a coverage of people that are already on it to make sure that our children and their mothers are healthy for a year.
And we lose a lot of mothers here. I mean, mothers die here.
We have the highest mortality tables of deaths of anyone. And then in addition to that, there are other things that go on this in their normal health, birth planning, all the other things that maybe a young mom, particularly if they were single or whatnot, not having a support, would really desperately need. I think we're just better than that, actually. I'm hopeful that we'll look at it with a clear eye this next year and not see this under some nomenclature from 3 presidents ago or something.
Obamacare. We want to always bring up that everything is Obamacare. So, no.
Not this.
No, this certainly is not. Well, and you mentioned that lawmakers did not pass anything to restore the state's ballot initiative process. That was something you wanted.
I did, and still do.
And a lot of people did.
Right.
But we couldn't seem to get that. And I remember, I can't remember who, one of our representatives said, that was something we should have tackled right off the bat. Medical marijuana, and that we already had it in the, we knew what that was all about. In the queue, right.
So we did, and there was so much else going on. We had our group, our committee, Senator Polk, Senator Johnson, some others were working on our side. The other side had two or three members of the House, and they met several different times, and I was, how's it going? And I just kind of check on, we had medical marijuana, we had all this other stuff, teacher pay raise going on. Tax reform was eating up a huge amount of time. So in any event, I just kept going along, and then in the last couple of days, I noticed that we hadn't passed it. And so I asked our chairman to go meet with their chairman. I said, where are we? And we thought that it ought to be statutory, not constitutional. Apparently the House agreed with that, so we went to the number, and the House wanted like 87,000, and our Senate proposed some other number, I can't remember now, maybe 5 or 10% of the number of eligible voters. So I did catch the speaker, and I said, y'all, we need to come up with a number. But by then we were down to like 2 days, and you know, it all got stalled because of the tax, not reaching agreement on the tax, so we only had like 2 days to do all of our budgetary stuff. So it just did not come out. I do anticipate it'll come out next year. I do anticipate that it will be statutory, not constitutional, and there will be some number that makes sense in today's world for signatures.
And it may come out right at the top, like it.
I would like to bring it out
so
early.
we could get this out of the way.
Next year is an election year, and I think our people will want to take whatever issues we got and do them early,
right,
and resolve them early, like we did this year on a lot of things.
Up next, Delbert Hosemann on the Lafleurs Bluff project and why he thinks it's a hole-in-one for the city of Jackson. It's Mississippi Insight only on 12 News.
You were among the folks who celebrated the new master plan for the fabulous Lafleurs Bluff complex. I know you hope to be the first to tee off at that 10-hole golf course. I hope you are. The $13.2 million development, if I'm telling you all something new, will feature a new golf course. It's designed by renowned architect Robert Trent Jones II. They've never had one in Mississippi. It'll be the first one. They're in every state but here and South Dakota. Yeah, South Dakota. I found that interesting. There's also going to be a fitness court. I hope they have some pickleball courts, an expanded museum trail, and many more family-oriented attractions. Now, the Northside Sun calls it, quote, a visionary plan that will create one of the best urban parks in the country. But this taxpayer-funded project also has drawn criticism. Some Jacksonians are voicing concerns that this project, of course, Lieutenant Governor drew hefty state funding when the city has a lot of other pressing water and other infrastructure needs. But this is a state program. That's state land.
It's state property, and of course, these are not mutually exclusive. Working with Jackson on a number of issues, we appropriated money for their judges, extra judges, district attorneys. We appropriated money for Salyer Mara Hall, for fixing the planetarium, for the parking lot at the convention center, for 70 new police officers for Jackson through our Capitol Police. We appropriated a lot of money for Jackson that is solely related to Jackson. In addition, they asked for a $25 million match in order to get started on doing their water and sewer, and we agreed to do the match for $25 million. And the county has contributed some money, I think like 8 or 10, and we'll match that. So we should start out with $75 million to get organized on what they really need. The city fathers and mothers really have to come to a conclusion about how much they really need and how they're going to go forward. In one meeting with the mayor last year, he had given me some proposals to do a public-private partnership on water and sewer, and I looked that up, and there are not a lot of towns that are about our age that are doing that process. And I think that's something for them to consider, but we're not through with Jackson. I mean, the first $75 million or however much this ends up being, that's just the start of what we're going to need to fix Jackson. If they do a public-private partnership, they may need some upfront money or whatever, but those things will coagulate here during the next year, I think, and we're very anxious. You know, I live here, my grandchildren live here, so we're all very anxious to make sure Jackson works, and that's not only crime and judiciary and things like the cultural part of the park. I think the park is like the lungs of the state. It needs to breathe. Our kids need to come here. We get almost 40%, if you look at Shad White's, 40% of all college graduates that stay in Mississippi come to this metropolitan area. Well, they want a place to play golf or a place to walk or a place to go to the Children's Museum or the museum that we have for natural sciences. We've got all of these other things in Fondren that are going on.
And that wonderful playground.
And the playground is phenomenal. Blue Cross Blue Shield did that. And we want a place that is a place for our community to gather as a culture and be the lungs of our society. So that money is very well spent, and I think Mississippians will be really excited about when we go forward, and particularly attracting people and keeping our young people here.
Now that the session is over, how are you going to spend the rest of the year?
Well, we've already started on next year. We made a list of everything we did and everything that's we want to do next year. We're starting that process. We'll be starting hearings probably in June. So we don't really settle too much. I think a hearings process is real important. You know, you can watch it on the internet and we have it archived. You can look at it at night. But we'll be doing things on insurance. We'll be doing things on infrastructure. We'll be doing things on schools. Again, looking at what we need to do in the next year. And that process is already started.
I think it's really exciting. This is an exciting time.
It is, because for once we've got money. Mississippi usually doesn't have that. So.
And we're spending it.
Yes, ma'am. I hope well.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, Lieutenant Governor Hosemann here on Insight, and we will be right back.
Our thanks to Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann and 12 News' Melanie Christopher. We'll be back next weekend with more of the political and current affairs coverage that you demand. I'm Byron Brown. From all of us here at 12 News, make it a great weekend.